Hi, welcome to Paint Talk, the weekly show where I answer your questions on oil painting. So if you have a question, leave it in the comments section. I just might answer it on next week's Paint Talk. So in this video, I'm going to talk about ways that you can practice oil painting to get better. More specifically, I'm going to give you concrete exercises that you can do that I guarantee will improve your painting. Now, how do I know that these exercises will improve your painting? Because one, I have done them myself, and two, I have recommended them to my one-on-one Patreon students, and they seem to work very well. Before I jump into that, I'm just going to say, please, if you like this video, if you like this channel, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want full painting video tutorials, I have those on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. And if you want to follow what I paint on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Force43. All right, painting exercises. The first thing I want to talk about with painting exercises is kind of the mindset you should go into a painting exercise with. You're not doing these exercises to create a beautiful finished painting that you're going to hang and show everybody. I mean, it might happen, but don't go in there with the thought of trying to produce something incredible. I've talked about this before, just in terms of painting, and I say fall in love with the process, not the end product. The goal of these exercises is to learn and get better. And in order to do that, you're gonna have to make some bad paintings, you're gonna have to mess up. Now, that being said, the materials that you use for these exercises, you know, you don't want to be using expensive materials if you're trying to save as much money as you can when you're oil painting. I know materials can get very expensive. That's why I always recommend people get a pad of canvas paper. All right, now for the exercises. Actually, the first two exercises have to deal with value. This is probably the number one thing that I see people struggle with. Value is how light or dark a color is. If you're having trouble with your colors and getting the right colors, it's probably not a color issue, and it's more of a value issue. There is a saying that value does all the work and color gets all the credit. Now, gauging how light or dark a color is tough. The reason I think it's tough for a lot of people is that they go into it with preconceived notions of how light or dark certain colors are. Like if I say I have a blue and a yellow, which one's darker? Most people are gonna say the blue, but the truth is it depends. There are some really light blues and there's some really dark yellows, and I could definitely find a yellow that is darker than a blue. And people just get so caught up in color and getting the right color and this and that, when it is so much more the value. I don't care what you're painting, if you get the color wrong but the value right, the painting can still work very well. You can't say that so much by doing the opposite. If you have a painting where the colors are right and the values are off, it's not gonna work. So what can you do to get better at values? The first thing you can do is you can do monochromatic paintings. You know, use just black and white or just use any other color in white. I recommend, you know, like a darker color. That way you have a wider range of values. Doing a painting with just one color will start to train your eye and your mind to handle value. You'll start developing an eye for light and dark. And more importantly, value relationships. A color is only as dark as the lights around it and vice versa. So if you're painting something and you have a light that you're trying to get really bright and you just can't get it, you seem like you put down as light as paint as you can and it's not popping as something bright, look to the colors around it. It's probably not surrounded by dark enough colors. I'm constantly comparing my values. Is this darker than this, but still lighter than this and lighter than that? Always comparing values. Now, kind of an inverse exercise you can do of this is painting with a lot of colors. What do I mean? If you don't have enough colors for this exercise, you can go to the store and just buy one of those cheap, you know, $10 to $15 sets of like 12 different colors. And what you do is you put out all 10 or so colors out on your palette. And the rule is you can't mix any of the colors. So you're gonna have a lot of very crazy colors on there. You're gonna have, you know, blue and green and yellow and orange and red and all these different colors, and you can't mix any of them. So whatever you're painting, you have to decide what color goes to what value. So if the darkest color you have is like an ultramarine blue, like that's gonna be your darkest darks. And if the lightest color you have is like an orange or a bright yellow, that's gonna be your lightest lights. The cool thing about this exercise is that you're gonna produce a very colorful painting. And what you're gonna learn is you're gonna learn to stop thinking about color. When you look at all your colors on your palette, whether it's blue, purple, red, green, whatever, you're not going to really be thinking about color. You're just going to be thinking about value. You're going to say, all right, I have this green. Where and what I'm painting with this green fall value-wise? Is it darker? Is it lighter? Where is it going to go? If you want to see me make a video on doing this exercise, let me know in the comments section. And if enough people want me to, I'll make a video doing that. All right, next exercise. Probably one of the most common questions I get asked is, hey Chris, how do I paint looser? I feel like I'm painting very tight. So if you feel like you paint too tight, like you're just coloring inside the lines, you're tiptoeing around your painting, you're painting around everything, you're not building up the paint, if your portraits look too cartoonish, this exercise can help you. So the exercise is choose something that you think would take you a long time to paint. A long time for you could be 3 hours, 5 hours, 3 days, whatever it is, and try and paint that in 30 minutes. Literally put a timer on yourself and only give yourself 30 minutes to paint. Now, the goal of this exercise isn't to paint an amazing painting. It's to shift your perspective on painting, to get you to see things differently. And when you're moving really fast, you're gonna very quickly understand what is important in the painting. You're gonna learn very quickly what's important in a painting and what's not important. You're gonna understand what is important is the big shapes, because you're not gonna have time to be getting in there with little detail. You're gonna have to be using a big brush and a lot of paint and covering a large area quickly. I recommend this one to my students all the time, and the ones that actually go and do it say they are so glad that they did. Now, another exercise similar to this that's probably a little more scary is painting with your non-dominant hand. When you do that, you're really forced to just paint in big shapes and not get in there with detail. You're not going to be painting so carefully. The sooner you realize that oil painting isn't about just drawing something on a canvas and then filling it in, the sooner you're going to see improvements. So much of oil painting is what I say pushing and pulling. You paint the darks in a lot of times too much, and then you push back with the lights, and then maybe push the lights too much, you come back with the darks. Maybe you're painting a face and you have it too wide and you cut back in with the background. Oh, maybe you cut in too much, so you come back with the face. It's a lot like working with clay, and you can't really mess up. That's why I like painting with oils so much. And once I switched over to oils from watercolors and acrylics, I never went back, because you really can't mess up. You can always wipe a section, you can always scrape it down, you can always build up on top of it, you can always change the color of the paint that is on the canvas. You know, one of the great things about oil paint is a slow drying time. So just because you have a color on the canvas, you can change that color on the canvas. And I'm not talking about just painting another color over top of it, which you can do, but you can actually mix color into that wet paint on your canvas and change the color and value. Understanding this will allow you to paint with confidence, because you'll know when you put down paint, no matter how off it is, by the end of the painting, you'll be able to push it and pull it and dial it in to where you need to be. And going into a painting with confidence is probably one of the most important things. You don't want to be doubting yourself the whole way of the painting. You want to be confident. You want to be saying, yes, this is going to work. I know what to do. No matter what happens, I know I'll be able to push it and pull it until I get it to where I want. All right, next exercise is paint small. I've actually made a whole video on the benefits of painting small. I'll put a link to it above. Painting small is very helpful for people that struggle with simplifying a scene. This especially is very important with landscapes. So much of landscapes is simplifying a scene. And when you do a small painting with a big brush, the saying goes, little painting, big brush. Who said that? I don't know. Is it true? It's absolutely true. But painting small, and I'm talking, 3x5, like really small, these little studies will help so much in getting you to see things simply, because the fact that you're using a big brush and you're on such a small canvas, it's just going to physically force you to not be able to get stuck into details and to just work the big values and the big shapes. It's also going to force you to paint with thicker paint. And I think you realize once you get thick paint on there, thicker paint is actually easier to work than thin paint. Painting small is also great because it doesn't take up a lot of time. You can do these little paintings in less than an hour. You can tape off sections on a canvas pad and get a whole bunch of little studies on one page. This also comes in handy when you're planning to do a bigger painting. If you got a big landscape you want to do a couple of small ones first to kind of figure things out. Maybe you need to move some things for the composition. Maybe you need that time to practice and figure out exactly the values and the colors. Maybe you need to manipulate something from the photo, which you probably are going to do, because photos don't capture landscapes exactly how they should be painted. The values and colors always tend to be off, so you have to adjust that a little bit, and doing little small paintings is the perfect place to figure all of that out. All right, so those are the exercises I recommend. Again, if you liked the video, if you like the channel, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Full painting video tutorials are on my Patreon page. I do have a Foundations of Oil Painting course coming out in January. If you don't want to miss out on when I release that, sign up for the Paint Coach newsletter, which is linked in the description below. I'm on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting. Hey, since you made it all the way to the end of the video, would you do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button? Also, you will probably like this video as well.